Hey everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider. I'm here at the Kia Telluride Supper Suite here at Sundance with everyone behind Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. I want to first start by saying congratulations on the movie. I thought it was fantastic. Such a great family movie. So I guess I'm going to start, I'll start with you right at the beginning and say, I know it's a little generic, but some people will not be familiar with the material. Talk maybe a little bit about what the film is about.
I feel like the author of the book should answer that, but I will give my best shot, and then he will correct me. I was drawn to the material because it is about this 9-year-old boy who has a single mom.
Or 11.
I think we oscillated between 9 and 10. Did we end up at 10, or did we stay at
10, yeah. I think we ended at 10.
Fifth grade, though.
All right.
10.
9 then. 10 or 9.
10-year-old
No,
boy.
that's 10 or 11.
Well, guys, we cannot argue. We cannot
do this
fight
for the
like
next
this.
10
I'm in 5th grade. I would know.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking.
Okay, so 10-year-old boy who considers himself a world-famous detective and uses this as a way of dealing, coping, and connecting with the world. And of course, like most 10-year-old detectives, he has for his partner in his agency a polar bear, a 1,500-pound polar bear named Total. So it's, that old story.
Yeah, by the way, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's really the thing.
If you could.
I wanted to jump over and say, so how did this all connect?
Yeah.
The genesis.
Somebody gave the book to Tom shortly after it had come out, and I guess Tom read it and liked it. So the two of us met in New York City and got along, and then met again in L.A., and then I threw a bit of a wrench into it by asking if I could write on the movie with him, and I had never written a movie before. So Tom was very generous and let me write, and that began a 2-year partnership of writing this whole movie. So for me, it was a great education in film, and generous of Tom to let me do it with him.
I thought the script was fantastic. Like, it made me laugh a lot. I felt all the characters were three-dimensional, just so well done. Talk a little bit about how things changed from when you guys first started outlining to maybe what ended up on the screen, or if it was always, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this one I will go first. So I spent about a year on the script, and I was really struggling with it. And two things occurred to me. One, that I had never adapted a book before. It took me a while to realize that. And two, this book was very, very difficult to adapt because of the the structure of the book, which was incredibly sort of tangential in its writing. It sort of parallels Timmy's brain, which goes in a lot of directions at once. And it's really tough to track one storyline or one narrative. So I realized after kind of breaking, hitting my head against a wall for a while, that I needed to kind of impose a little bit more of a structure, and at the same time try to hold on to all the wonderful things about the book, and including his voice most specifically, and that sort of randomness of his voice. So that was a tricky process, I would say. For me, very tricky.
Yeah, and I tried to not be too precious about the book because as Tom explained to me early on, a film is a film and a book is a book. So if there were things that had to be changed, we changed them. I mean, the one thing I just tried to keep is Timmy's voice, but other than that, if Tom thought it was good for the film, I thought it was good for the film. So,
Of course, I'm very curious. I believe, I could be wrong here, this is your first movie. Am I wrong? Wait, is it second? First?
Let me see here. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Because before this, I just did like a TV show and things, but really this was my first big film that I was actually a big part of, and I was so glad when I got it. It was a very odd experience when I first found out that I got the role. Because I think I was walking. Was I? Yeah, no, I was walking home from the bus. My dad kind of ran up to me or something, and he was like, so you were cast in Timmy Failure? And I was like, wow. I was kind of caught off guard, but then I was very just excited and just so happy that I could be a part of it, especially after I met the cast and
the bear.
Tom and Stephan.
Stephan. That'll work.
Okay, what? Okay, I've known him for many years and I still don't know how to pronounce his name. But the bear, I think it's good to acknowledge the bear because it was actually a guy in a 9-foot suit who was walking around, and his name was Michael, and he just became one of my really good friends while we were shooting, because I'm with him most of the time, and yeah, and I think it's good we acknowledge him because he was sweating in 90-degree weather in Portland in a giant polar bear suit. So
I wouldn't have done it.
I mean, I wouldn't have.
It was actually important work, right? Because it gave this wonderful actor Michael from Vancouver gave Timmy Winslow someone to really connect with.
Yeah,
and he was an actor, and we knew that Rich McBride would do his amazing VFX work afterwards, which is pretty incredible. And but in the moment, we really needed someone there, someone present, someone for, as he said, to become friends with.
This is going to be streaming on Disney Plus. Talk a little bit about how it ended up on Disney Plus, and maybe like the behind the scenes. Was it ever originally conceived as trying to go theatrical? I mean, for me, I think Disney Plus is just such a great place for it because so many people are going to see this movie.
Yeah. It was initially when I initially talked to the people at Disney about developing this and creating it. I've only made movies, so that was where my head was. And right when we got close to making it, they hesitated. And it's the first time that's happened to me professionally, so I thought, wow, what's going on? And then I circled up with them, and they were like, look, here's the deal. The movies, family movies in this range, we're going to say for this new venture we're having, this is about a year before they announced Disney Plus, and we think this would be a great film to kind of lead with in some regard. Have it be one of our first original releases, and if you're game. And I had to kind of wrap my head around it, quite honestly, because I didn't know, we're all catching up to the times and what this all means. But the more I thought about exactly what you said, the type of movie it was, how it might connect with audiences, where they might see it, it made sense. And I also realized, to Disney's credit, it's a really tricky movie to make, right? It really kind of breaks a lot of molds in a lot of ways. It's not standard fare. I think the reason we're here at Sundance with it is because I think it owes more to independent cinema than it does sort of the classical structure of Disney movies. So I was thrilled that they were taking a chance with this and felt like it was not necessarily a compromise, but a perfect middle ground and platform for the film.
I actually heard that this was the first Disney film to come to Sundance. I'm pretty sure that's correct, but yeah, that's a pretty big deal, man. I mean, like
100%.
That's true. I heard that too.
I'm really glad that they decided to go this way because it's been really fun so far, and I've only been here for like 2 days or something. But it's such a cool experience being able to be here, and it's my first film festival, and it's my first Sundance too. So I'm just really glad I can be here.
I think that one of the things that audiences are really going to love are you have a lot of catchphrases and a lot of certain sayings.
Mistakes were made.
Exactly. Talk a little bit about where did some of these catchphrases originally, come from, and maybe were there some that you thought about adding to the movie? I can see a lot of kids in the near future saying some of these things.
A lot of them come from just the book. Some of them we sort of found in the writing process. One of them that is said throughout, which is normal is for normal people, was the result of me yelling at my son one day and saying, Tom, you got to be normal. Come on, help me out here. And he said, normal is for normal people. And that ended up in the movie. And as you see, it's a critical line. So, yeah, personal experience during the writing and from the book.
Now I want to meet your son.
Yeah.
I'm always curious about the editing process because ultimately that's where it all comes together.
Yeah.
So what were you surprised by when you stepped in the editing room?
That it worked, maybe one. There was a little bit of a wire act with this film and balancing a grounded kind of family drama with some comedy, and then sort of the more high art of some of Timmy's flash away fantasy sequences, and finding the balance in there, and specifically his performance, and then that with the bear sort of moving through this movie and not acting like a typical Disney animal. It doesn't talk, it doesn't act in any heroic way, it's just present. So all those pieces, how they would fit together. But I will say, I think we spent so much time kind of refining the script that it fit together pretty quickly. There wasn't a lot of major readjustment. We did 2 days of reshoots on this film, which were really just because we realized we could lean a little bit more into some of the fantasy sequences. that we went down and reshot. And also, I think that we could set up a little bit more a signal to the audience of just what was coming in the movie, because we realized that they hadn't really seen a movie like this. We started testing it, and we were asking people, like, what does it remind you of? And no one had an answer. So we're like, okay, if that's the case, it's working, the movie's working, but we just want to figure out a way to plate it a little bit in kind of act one and set it up for our audiences, and that's where we put our kind of focus on that. But and editing was really a lot of fun. It was a fun movie to make and a fun movie to edit.
Another thing I really like is the way that it portrays real life issues, and it's not shying away from real problems and putting it through the lens of Timmy's eyes. And so could you sort of talk about that aspect, that it's not, it's dealing with adult stuff?
Yeah.
Well, the bear is really sort of, in the books, is a stand-in for a father who's not present. And in the movie, we make that fairly obvious. So as somebody once said to me, the presence of the bear is a measure of sort of the hole in Timmy's heart. So you see that very clearly in some of the early scenes when the way the bear enters. So yeah, that's a serious undertone that is in this movie. We don't hit it here, but it's definitely under here the whole time. So it does have that base, a rather serious base. So that's true.
Something else, you guys got to use Portland for Portland. You embrace the what Portland is.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that aspect of the film and maybe what you wanted to make sure got in there from Portland.
Well, when Steph wrote the book, it was really sort of set nowhere, right,
Right,
Steph?
right.
And so we quickly realized if we're going to make a movie, we couldn't shoot in nowhere, so we had to find a place. And we started thinking, where could a boy have a pet polar bear and sort of still fit in? And that led to basically two cities, or maybe three: New York, which we didn't want to do, New Orleans, which was too hot, and Portland, which sort of seemed to fit the bill. And so we ended up in Portland, and I'd spent some time there. Steph had spent some time there. I sent Steph, sort of dispatched him there very quickly to kind of dig deeper on it. And all our research just felt like as soon as we got there as writers, forget about the filmmaking aspect of it, we just thought the environment and the setting was right, the culture, the people, the inclusivity, the kind of the weirdness that makes that town felt perfect for and it was it was a super nice place to shoot, and felt like this kid would thrive there. And also Timmy and his mom don't have a lot of money, and we're trying to find a neighborhood that they felt like was socially, economically right for them. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of reality to that. What she can afford, they have to move because they can't afford their place, and she's working 2 jobs, so she's not around a lot for her kid. All those things that kids have to deal with at some point, the reality of their parents and their struggles. So we leaned into that.
I also think Portland was such a good place to do it, just because it's kind of a place where people can just be themselves and they don't really have to fake anything. And I think that's kind of what I want some people to just take off from this movie, is that you don't have to fake to be someone else. Just try and be confident in who you are, and then you can honestly be a lot happier if you're just being yourself instead of someone that you aren't. And then another thing about when you said New Orleans was too hot, I think there was one day where I was really curious. So I looked at the weather of New Orleans, and it was 103 degrees, and I was like, yeah, I'm glad we didn't shoot there. Because that would have been a pain. And it was already really hot in Portland, so...
Yeah, this global warming thing isn't messing around.
Not good for filmmaking.
No. You you have Craig Robinson, you have Wallace Shawn.
Yeah.
Wallace Shawn is Wallace Shawn. I love him. Talk a little bit about, you have a great supporting cast, so talk a little bit about some of these people.
A lot of them. Kyle also, and Ophelia Lovibond, just some great actors and comedic actors that really kind of rounded out the ensemble. And, Craig's work I've admired for so long. And Wally, working with Wally was sort of a dream come true for me.
Honestly, Daryl is probably my favorite character in all of The Office.
Really?
So
Yeah.
Craig is just...
Yeah, Craig's the man.
Awesome.
And watching them together was really fun. But all of them, seeing Winslow have to kind of interact with these 3 men in his life, with Kyle and Wally and Craig was just very different. The dynamic was very different and very satisfying. and not to mention some of the other. I will say we shot in Portland and Vancouver and Portland, but in Portland specifically, the actors that we used locally to fill out the cast were just tremendous. Like, sometimes you get to a town, you don't know what you're going to find, and everyone including Caitlin, who played Flo, who's just terrific in scene stealing in every scene she's in. So we were very, very lucky to end up there.
She was the one who played the librarian.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, she's fantastic.
Stand-up comedian.
Yeah, fantastic.
I really want to go to one of her shows.
Yeah.
I normally don't like to dive in on like sequels and all that stuff, but I can see this being a really big hit. If it ends up being a really big hit, is this something that you've thought about? Like, would we want to do another?
Yes. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. We're currently negotiating with Mr. Fegley. No, we have. I think we would all do it again in a minute. Steph's already started working on another script, and I think there's so much material in the books. I mean, he's written how many books?
7.
Now?
Yeah.
7. And
So many possibilities.
there's so many great characters and so many recurring characters. So look, I think whenever you talk about a sequel, it's like, do people want to come back and spend time with the characters? And I think when I watch the movie now, that's one thing I really feel satisfied by watching it, is how many different characters there are that are fun to spend time with. So that to me is a good thing. So I would not rule that out.
I was going to say one of the things that's great is this is a complete story, beginning, middle, and end. So but it leaves room if you want it to continue. I wanted to just ask you, you have a number of things you could pick from. Do you have the one that if you were to be, say, making a sequel, do you have the title? Do you know which one it is?
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah, it's a combination. The series is 7 books.
Sure.
So if I had my way, the sequel is a bit of a combination of 2, 3, and 4, sort of put together, truncated. So, it's really, for me, it was a matter of finding what new character that wasn't in one would make this really interesting. So I think I found that character from one of the books. And so, it's fun. It's fun. I like exploring. I mean, for me, I was saying to Tom with the sequel, part of the fun is we've seen him interact with certain age classifications, and there was this one that we hadn't seen. What would he be like around this type of person? So the character that I was focusing on for the sequel is this character from one of the books that it would be fun to just see. So I just kind of like to bounce him off of, different roles.
I'm just wondering if that person would be in high school.
No, that person would be old. Yes.
Got it? Okay.
Yes.
Got it. For the three of you, I would imagine that making this was just an awesome experience. What's a day or two that you will always remember from the making of the film?
I think I'll always remember the day where it was this scene where it's me and Molly, or Chloe is her real name, right? And it was this one scene where the cat jumps up on me and I'm like, ah! And the cat was very difficult. He was just not cooperating that day. And so eventually, it took so many shots, and then eventually they just threw the cat on me, and then Chloe had to
Gently.
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 Very Disney. Gently.
There were no cat abuse on the set of Timmy Failure. Okay.
You mean the highly trained cat trainer gently placed the
Yes.
cat on your lap? Is that what you mean, Winnie?
Yeah, they actually just edited her out. Yeah. But that was definitely one of them. And also, just when I was doing all the scenes with all the kids, it was just so fun. Because for most of the part, I'm with adults, which was also very fun. Working with Craig, where I'm like against the fence and things. But I think I will definitely remember most of this because it's a big experience in my life, and it's a big step in my career. So I think that this is definitely something that I'll remember.
I would say, as the writer, the first page of the first book is a car that drives into a house, and that's a scene in this movie. And when you go onto the set and you see 200 people around you, literally having built this home, and a stunt driver about to drive this car 40 miles an hour into a house, it's like what was inside your brain is now in the real world. And I just wandered around like, how is this even possible? I mean, something I just typed on a page one day years ago. These people are all, putting this together. That was a mind-blowing sort of moment for me.
It's tough. There's so many moments, so many scenes. It was sort of fun launching that truck into the house the day
was
we did
so
it. It was
awesome.
kind of, I just never done a stunt
looks
that
like
big,
the house
technically,
is
so
like
that was
water.
cool. But, all these different actors we got to work with on this one. It was truly just, in terms of shooting, which isn't as always as fun as the final product is, it was a very enjoyable experience.
I could be mistaken, but I think you have a film coming out this Christmas. Talk a little bit about what it's about and what people can look forward to.
It's a little bit different than Timmy. It is about a roughneck from Oklahoma, played by Matt Damon, who travels to France to visit his daughter, who is serving time in prison.
And the title is?
Stillwater.
I know that Matt is very selective with his material. What was it like when he said, yeah, I'm doing this?
It was exciting. Yeah, no, it was. He responded very quickly to it, and we started talking about it, and it came together pretty quickly, and we, again, had a pretty good time shooting it.
On that note, I will say congratulations sincerely on this movie. It's so good, and I hope you guys are able to make a sequel because I would totally watch it.
Awesome.
Thank you.